What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Good afternoon. We've got more things to say about Jack Westover, the UDFA tight end we got from Washington. And obviously, earlier today, I presented the numbers. But now I want to talk about the skills. I want to talk about what he brings to the table, what he should be able to do for us. And sometimes you got to go a little bit beyond the numbers to understand that. So, Jack Westover, player that I'm personally pretty familiar with because I've watched pretty much every play of his career, and a lot of my viewers probably are as well. So, in some ways, I might be preaching to the choir here, but I do think that there are a lot of people out there who don't watch a lot of college football, or if they do, they root for another team and they don't know much about Westover. So, let's unpack the Jack Westover egg here. That didn't make any sense. You don't unpack an egg, you crack an egg. So let's crack this egg and see what is going on with his skills. So, pros. Let's start with the positives. Let's start with the things he brings to the table that I like. I think he's a good route runner. He has pretty sharp breaks. He's able to cut sharply coming through his routes. So that's going to, when he's against man coverage, he's going to be able to use that to shake his man and get open. So he's not the fastest guy, although he's got decent speed. But his good route running is going to help him get open in the NFL, even. So I do think there is some legitimate ability to get open in the NFL. And not only does it work against man, he's also going to be pretty good against zone. I think that he has a cerebral understanding of how to attack zone defenses. He finds the hole and he sits down in it. A lot of his catches are just come off the line of scrimmage, then turn to the quarterback 4 yards down the field, sit down, wait for him to throw you the ball, get the ball, and then go get a couple more yards. A lot of that stuff on the tape. So he understands how to attack man and zone pretty well. He's probably better against zone, but regardless, I think he can stay on the field for both. He also has a good understanding of how to help his quarterback when he's in distress. That's something that you really pick up on when you look at him. And that's something you really need to be able to do well when you're already on the fringes, like just Jack Westover is. He's not, he's not Brock Bowers. He's not Kyle Pitts. He's not TJ Hawkinson. He doesn't have that level of talent. So you got to do the little things right, like understanding when your quarterback is in under duress, you have to get back to him, you have to work your way into his line of sight, and you have to try to get open underneath him and give him a target to throw the ball to. I think that he's got enough quickness and speed to get behind most linebackers, even in the NFL. Granted, most linebackers in the modern NFL are pretty quick, so it's not going to be like he's trying to get behind guys like the 250, 260 pound linebackers. So there are going to be guys that can keep up with him, but he has a decent amount of quickness and speed. He didn't test at the combine, so we don't know exactly what it is, but it seems like it's going to be okay. He's got reliable hands. He can be counted on to provide a safety valve underneath. Good hands. Also has a decent catch radius despite being so small because he's willing to throw himself around and very capable of like digging out a low ball or going to get a ball that's behind him, which you wouldn't necessarily expect looking at him, but he can do it. He's got the flexibility to line up as a slot tight end and a fullback at the NFL level, I believe. I think that he'll be kind of like a H-back, a Jacob Hollister type maybe. Somewhere in there, he'll find his NFL role. It's not going to be a lot of inline stuff because of his size, but he has so much experience lining up in the slot as a receiver and a decent amount of experience lining up in the backfield that I think he'll be able to find a role regardless. So as long as you're asking him to do the right things, you're going to have some degree of success. He also has some experience lining up on the outside as a wide receiver, just legitimately lining up close to the boundary. And that is another thing that he brings to the table that could be valuable in the NFL because, again, the inline stuff goes away. The inline stuff is not going to fly very well in the NFL because he's undersized. I'm not expecting him to be able to do that. So I do think that even though he didn't find himself on the receiving end of a lot of downfield targets, like he wasn't a downfield threat, but I think he can do it. And I think that the fact that he didn't get targeted down the field very often had more to do with Washington's receivers than an inability on the part of Westover to do it. So I think that if you put Westover out there and you ask him to run routes up the seam, like Washington would have him do it. They just didn't throw him the ball that often. So I do think he can run downfield routes. I think he's a pretty good ball tracker. I think he can do that stuff. But it's not really the repertoire he built up from college, admittedly. And like I said, he maximizes his catch radius despite his smaller size, digs out hard catches. So he's definitely a player who is going to get the most out of his skill set. His skill set is not huge, but I have no doubt he's going to squeeze out every little bit that he can out of what he can do. Some of the concerns with Jack Westover would be he's small, he's light, and he's got short arms, which I think that goes without saying when you're looking at this guy. He's very underneath the current standards of a tight end in the modern NFL. Granted, tight ends these days are becoming more athletic, more concerned with being great athletes rather than being big, but Westover is pushing it too far for me to expect him to really be able to play tight end. In fact, I don't think he'll be much of an inline tight end at all. He'll maybe line up there occasionally, but I think you're going to want to put him on the move a lot. You're going to want him in the slot a lot. You're going to want him put in situations where he can play in space. So I don't think all the stuff he did in college is going to transfer to the NFL. So not expecting that at all. Most of his college production was done on simple routes where he was left wide open. He didn't have to fight through a jam at the line of scrimmage. He didn't have to deal with tight coverage. Honestly, a lot of teams that Washington played over the last 2 years would let the team just have those easy checkdowns all day because it was better than chucking it up to Odunze and having him bring in a 40-yard catch in double coverage. So Westover just gets left wide open underneath, gets left wide open in the flats, makes easy little catches, defender nowhere near him, goes and gets a few yards, better than a big play. So a lot of his production was done when it was basically given to him. In the NFL, maybe he won't be given that much. He's not going to be on a team that is elite offensively the way Washington was in all likelihood. Like, it's rare that you see a offense in the NFL at all that plays like that. He's a fundamentally poor blocker, I think. He's not that strong to begin with, so he doesn't really have margin for error, but he's fundamentally poor in terms of like hand placement and leverage. I just don't think he's a very good blocker. He could get better, but I don't think he'll ever be good at it because he's too small and too weak. Doesn't really force missed tackles. He doesn't make people miss, and he doesn't break tackles. He has, almost 90 career catches, and I think he had 7 forced missed tackles in his career. So we're talking about a guy who gets what is there, but he's not going to get more than that. And even though he has good hands, contested catch situations usually will not go in his favor because he's just too small. He can't box out the way some tight ends can do, and he's not going to be making a lot of catches through traffic. It'll happen every now and then, of course, but I'm not expecting a lot of that. And that's all I got for the pros and cons of Jack Westover. So let me know what you think down below. Another video coming later.